what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Nashville Native, where you get all your sports content that's in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm your host, like always, Justin Hawkins. Welcome back. Thank you for joining. You can always follow along on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or or Twitter to get all your Nashville sports content, needs, wants, desires, whatever you name it. We've got the Nashville Predators, Nashville SC, Tennessee Titans, and just general topics around the NFL, NBA, NHL, soccer, whatever, MLS, whatever you name it. You know, whatever's big going on, we've got it, as well as Tennessee sports. So we've got a lot of things coming up. We're going to start with the Super Bowl that was last Sunday. What a game that was, whoever watched that. A lot of people did, according to ratings. We've got some news for the Tennessee Titans. You know, we've got some news for the Nashville Predators. And we have Nashville SC starting their season next week. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The Super Bowl. What a game. Oh my goodness, what a game that was. It turned out to be a just show. I knew it would be a show. I knew it would be back and forth. Did not play out how I predicted it. I predicted last week Philadelphia winning 38-31. Instead, it was 38-35. Kansas City Chiefs becoming Super Bowl champions once again. The third time in 4 years that they have been to the Super Bowl, but just the second time that they have won it. The first time was against the San Francisco 49ers in 2019. And then now, of course, they win again. So, like I said in that game, the only way Kansas City is gonna have to be stout on defense, which they were, and Travis Kelce's gonna have to score a touchdown of some capacity, and he did. So, you know, it was a recipe for success. Now, I will say the way the game started off, Jalen Hurts' Philadelphia Eagles offense just absolutely destroyed Kansas City's defense, and they just went right down the field and scored. Also, the amount of times on a 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 of the quarterback sneak that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles did, that is just silly. Absolutely silly that they are able to do that time and time again, and Kansas City had no response. They had no clue on how to stop it. There was one time where defensive tackle for the Chiefs, Chris Jones, timed it perfectly, hopped over, hit Jalen Hurts in the backfield, and yet he still picked up another yard. Absolutely good show, and, you know, it was a really good game from start to finish. You know, there's not much to say about it other than just, you know, it came down. It's probably going to be one of the better Super Bowls in history. It's a classic already. You know, it was something that, you know, there was no lead too big, no lead too small that just made you feel like this game was out of whack. It didn't make you feel like Philadelphia absolutely controlled the game. It didn't make you feel like Kansas City controlled the game. It was just back and forth. Philadelphia ended up getting to a small lead there, but Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes is becoming one of those quarterbacks, kind of like a Tom Brady, that you cannot count out. When he is in the game, you know, yes, he is hurt. He had his ankle hurt. Did that in the Jacksonville divisional game. But when Patrick Mahomes is in the game, you cannot count him out. He just makes so many plays with his feet. Whether that's picking up a first down if he needs to, making the play with his arm. He's got just immaculate arm talent, and you know you cannot count that guy out. And of course you can't. You know, like I said, Philadelphia came out into a lead, and you know Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, they just marched right on back. So it was, you know, look, Jalen Hurts is he was the show. He was the star of the game. You know, I think if Philadelphia won the game, I think Jalen Hurts would have been MVP, but instead Patrick Mahomes was MVP, and I think honestly, rightfully so. You know, he threw for 182 yards, which is not much considering Patrick Mahomes, who typically throws 200, 300, 400 yards in a game and does it well. But he threw for 3 touchdowns. You know, he had one to Travis Kelce. He had one to Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Those were both in the fourth quarter to help them pad that lead to 38. But he didn't have to do a lot. You know, the Chiefs defense, they came to play. You know, they got 2 sacks. The sacks were very hard to come by in this game, which was very surprising to me because The Philadelphia Eagles defense had the third most sacks in NFL history in the regular season, and yet they did not get a single sack on Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. The Chiefs did. They got 2 sacks. One was a forced fumble. They also had a touchdown. So that was surprising to me that the Chiefs were able to get a touchdown from the defense. I think that was the biggest part of the game was that strip sack and fumble for a touchdown. I think that was the biggest play of the game that really told you the story of, Kansas City is going to win this game because they had the right intangibles at the moment to take that game. And I think if that play does not happen, I think you do see a Philadelphia championship. But instead, things play out the way they play out. And, the Chiefs played well from the defense, like I said, to the offense. I think all the way around. Even special teams came to play. Kadarius Toney in the late fourth quarter, he almost had the first punt return in NFL history. Instead, he ran it back to about the 10-yard line or so, or less than that. And then Kansas City ended up getting a touchdown out of that. But it was, there's not much to say other than it was just a great game. I think the issue, if there's always an issue with some game, and the thing about the playoffs and the regular season this year has been the refs. And I think the refs, they showed their face once again, and they're putting their names in the game when they should not be putting the names in the game. But here's the thing, it was a late call in the fourth quarter. It's the 2-minute warning has already come and passed. There's about a minute and a half to go, and Kansas City's got a third and long. They're looking for a first down. A first down does not get them. They have to get a first down. There was no touchdown or anything like that. And Juju Smith-Schuster went for the end zone, but there was a holding call against James Bradbury that forced a defensive holding call that forced a automatic first down for Kansas City. Now the controversy is, was it actually holding? If you're watching this and you're thinking that was not a hold, you tell me. If you're thinking it was a hold, you tell me. What do you think? For me, I think it was clear that it was a hold. Now, was it egregious? That's the other thing. You're looking at the actual play. He does grab the jersey, so that happens. But it's the Super Bowl. It's the playoffs. You have to, at some point, you have to think, you kind of gotta let them play a little bit. I know in the NBA, at least they used to in the playoffs, it was, if you're going to foul somebody, typically they were hard fouls. And same thing for the Super Bowl or the NFL playoffs is, when fouls occur, such as holding or pass interference or things, typically they let things slide. But that was a big moment. That was the crucial moment and basically what did not allow Philadelphia to come back and have a chance to tie the game. So it ended up, Kansas City got the first down. They nailed the ball a few times, kicked the field goal, going up 38-35, leaving the Eagles with 8 seconds on the clock. And there's really not much you could do there. Jalen Hurts had to do a Hail Mary, which was a sorry and embarrassing attempt at a Hail Mary because it didn't even go 50 yards. He's sitting there around the 40-yard line on the Eagles side, and he barely even gets it to the 20-yard line. It was not a very good throw, and not a great way to end the game. It was one of those games. There's a lot of build up. Getting to the end. Here we go. We're going back and forth. Kansas City took the lead, and Eagles tied up. Jalen Hurts 2-point conversion. You're sitting 35-35. The Chiefs had the ball driving. Is this the last drive or not? It didn't have to be. It did not have to be the last drive, because if that call did not happen, it would have forced a fourth down, and the Chiefs would have kicked a field goal anyways. Now you're leaving Jalen Hurts and that really good Eagles offense about a minute and a half chance to tie the game and then go to overtime. What an epic game that would have added to the story, and it would have just been crazy. Instead, now I will say after the game, James Bradbury did come out and say that he agreed with the call and that he did hold. But at the same time, you look at the replay, yes, you can see that there is a hold there. It's minute. It's so minuscule that it makes you think, why was it called? Why was it even called? Did it really make that big of an impediment on Juju Smith-Schuster to where he would not been able to catch that ball? Patrick Mahomes threw it at the back of the end zone. By the time the ball landed, Juju Smith-Schuster barely got into the end zone, barely even touched the goal line. If it was pass interference, you would have claimed it being uncatchable. But because it's holding, things are a little bit different. But you can tell that his stride really doesn't change in that moment. But the refs called it anyways, and that was a big game changer. For those who like things like I do, it's NFL films where they have NFL cameras at every game, and they record. They have players mic'd up. They have sound bites from players talking casually to other players or whatever, making comments here and there. There was Jason Kelsey, the center of the Eagles, made a comment right after the hold was called and said, if they're really going to call that, that's game over. And indeed, it was game over. You could tell the disappointment. He knew that he would have to trot it back out there at least one more time for the Hail Mary. Disappointment on the Eagles' faces, and rightfully so. I was not rooting for the Eagles there, but I understood the disappointment there because it was a back and forth build up game, and then it just was really just you build up, and then just deflate for the Eagles. And you never want to end a Super Bowl or a game of that caliber on a call by the refs or something like that, something that is just so deflating. It makes it disappointing and confusing, and how the game's in. But other than that, the game itself, like I said a bunch of times now, it was a crazy game. Jalen Hurts deserved the MVP, in my opinion. 304 yards passing, 27 of 38. Did get the 2 sacks, but he had 3 rushing touchdowns. So he had 4 total touchdowns in this game. I placed some bets on DraftKings and some FanDuel bets on there, and one of my bets was Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown score. But what I really should have done, and I would have won a lot of money on this, is if I bet more than 2 touchdowns. And I was so close to doing it because I knew that he would throw for at least 1 and run for at least 1. But I was just a little leery just in case Miles Sanders or Kenneth Gainwell took over. But that was not the case, where Jalen Hurts rushed for 3, and he was the star of the show for the Eagles. There was a lot of questions going in. I even questioned him last week, saying, is he elite? Can he make the throws? And I think he showed you on the biggest stage that there is in football that he is one of the top quarterbacks in this league. Now, I'm not going to say he's up there with Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Aaron Rodgers or people of those caliber. I'm not going to say he's that, but I would say because of that game, I think you can make the case that he is probably a top 10 quarterback. Maybe he's closer to 10, but it does beg the question of where did he supplant him or put himself on that list of top quarterbacks in this league? And I think he did a really good job of showing that he is and can be one of the best and elite quarterbacks in the game, and he did that. AJ Brown had a touchdown. For all the Titans fans out there that are watching this and did not want to see AJ Brown succeed, he did get the touchdown. 6 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown in the game, proving that he is elite. Also, Devontae Smith had 7 catches, 100 yards, did not get a touchdown, but 2 great receivers for the Eagles. And you can look at it on one side of the paper, and you can look at it on the other side, saying that the Chiefs deserve the win, the Eagles deserve the win. They both played a good enough game to win that game. One side had the deciding factor, and I think that was the defense of the Chiefs. I think they just showed up. The Eagles defense, who had, like I said, the 3rd most sacks in NFL history for the regular season, did not get a lick. Did not even get a lick of a score on there, or a lick of a sack. And Patrick Mahomes was able to stand up, do what he needed to do, and Chiefs' offensive line came to play. They showed up, showed out, and that was the difference. I think the defense just was the difference. And not a lot of turnovers in this game either. I think the only turnovers were Philadelphia. That Jalen Hurts had the strip sack, and but other than that, that was the only turnover. Miles Sanders almost had a catch and fumble, but it was ruled incomplete. There's a couple, questionable complete or incomplete passes. There was, the one to Devontae Smith on the sideline where he had both feet down, but he bobbled it all the way to the ground, so it was incomplete. And then you had one very similar in Dallas Goedert, tight end for the Eagles, who had one foot in, bobbled it a little bit, had the other foot in, and then maintained possession throughout. But it came back a complete catch. And I think rightfully so, because he had that first foot in still while he regained the control of that ball. So it was a really good game, and one of the best Super Bowls that you've seen probably in a while, probably since, 2016, the Tom Brady and the Patriots versus Matt Ryan and the Falcons, 28-3. Falcons were leading. Obviously, the story. Overtime, James White wins it, rushing the ball for the Patriots. Also, the Seahawks and Patriots Super Bowl a few years before that was really good. So there's been a lot of really good Super Bowls lately. Then there's also been some quote unquote crap shows. Where you have the Bucks championship over the Chiefs. Where the Chiefs only scored 9 points. That was attributed to the fantastic Tampa Bay defense. But yeah, there's been some really good ones, and this is going to go down as a classic. But I think it is a little tainted by that call at the end of the game. So, but some other news. We'll dip away from the Super Bowl. It is coming past, and it is time to move in. We are officially into the offseason of the NFL. We are officially into what is next for the NFL, what is next for the Titans as we move forward here. So there's some news going around in the NFL. Of course, Derek Carr is a free agent now. He has been released by the Las Vegas Raiders. So he is supposed to be visiting with the Jets coming up this week or next week and seeing if he can be their next quarterback. The Jets do want Aaron Rodgers as their primary option, but their other options are like Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo. And here's something interesting I found out the other day is Ryan Tannehill is now a potential option for the Jets. Now, of course, they would have to trade for him. Derek Carr is the only one they do not have to trade for, as he is a free agent. But Ryan Tannehill, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, all options that the Jets are considering for their next quarterback of the future. Now, that is interesting because, it has been rumored that the Titans are potentially looking in for a quarterback. Will they trade up in the draft from 11 to 1 or from 11 to 2 or something like that to get their next quarterback? It has been rumored that they are to do so, or from Chicago that they have been rumored to be in conversations and just, maybe gauging to see what the price of the number 1 pick would be. But because of that, the Jets are interested in Ryan Tannehill. And this is the first team that I have heard has been interested in such quarterback, which is surprising to me because Tannehill, he's almost 35, he's had some injuries earlier in his career, with the Titans. Now, I think with the Titans, the problem is the lack of offense. And that's not quite his fault. All he has is, like this past year, all he had was Derrick Henry, no offensive line, no receivers. What can you do with that? It's just terrible. The offensive line was worse than the league. That's probably the worst offensive line they've had since 2015 when they only won 2 games. It was terrible. Taylor Lewan, obviously, he got hurt. Second game of the season. The receivers, you're bringing in Robert Woods, hoping that he can, do something. He was basically irrelevant. Traylon Burks was in and out of the lineup with injury. He was supposed to be relevant, was irrelevant to a point. Made some splashes. But what in this Titans offense can make you think that they have something going for them? And, I think that's the thing, teams may realize with the Titans is that maybe Ryan Tannehill is not the problem. He was just the part of, the result. The result of the Titans' offense was that it was just bad, but maybe Tannehill's not the fault, which I firmly believe that he's not the fault. And if the Titans can improve the O-line and improve the receiver depth, I would love to have Tannehill back. I think he can thrive in an offense that is built for him, that has well-balanced weapons, and that is just not what they've had. last year. So, like I said, he's rumored to possibly be in conversations with the Jets. You have Aaron Rodgers over there. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has been in talks some sort of capacity with the Titans. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It's just rumors right now that executives of the NFL are suggesting that Aaron Rodgers may go to the Titans. Obviously, that is through trade. Probably be a Tannehill for Rodgers plus picks and retaining money maybe with Rodgers and Tannehill. Do you want Rodgers though? I don't know. Rodgers is obviously the better quarterback. He's older, but he's obviously better. He's much more talented, and he can win you ball games. Tannehill can't necessarily win you ball games per se, but with the same offense, I mean, I just don't think bringing in that much more salary. He's almost going to double Tannehill's salary next year. Bringing in that much more salary, is it worth it? You're not going to be able to upgrade on weapons like you could with Tannehill. You're not going to be able to have the wiggle room like you could with Tannehill. So I don't see the logistics and the right reasoning to bring someone like that in. I think if you're going to change quarterbacks, I think the only way you do it is, one, if you can trade Tannehill and, not forfeit a lot of salary cap. I think you would do that for Rodgers, but other than that, I just don't think it's worth it. The only way you maybe get rid of Tannehill is moving up in the draft. I don't want that. I don't want to move up to 1. I don't want to give up all the compensation that they're going to ask for, the Bears. Asking for this year's first-round pick, which is a given, or next year's and second-round picks, third-round picks, what have you, or a player. I don't want to do that. That's the only logistical and logical reason that I can see possibly getting a different quarterback is through draft this year. Now, with that being said, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are the two best quarterbacks in this draft. I don't care what you say about Will Levis from Kentucky. He just did not show enough. He is a pro-style quarterback, sure, but he is a product of, Kentucky. Kentucky had a bad year. He had a bad year. He did not elevate them enough. He had some good games here and there. But C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young are the definition of what a good college quarterback is. Can they be stars in the NFL? I'm sure they can, but Bryce Young is a little small. C.J. Stroud, he's got a good arm. He's got good arm talent. But he also had a lot of weapons at Ohio State. He has Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith-Njigba, among others. He had, good receivers last year, and so he's a product of Ohio State, who always produces good receivers and good offensive talent. But are they worth it to go up? I just don't think losing what you have now is worth it. You have what you have now, so make the cap room fit in what you have. So if we need to clear cap space by getting rid of Bud Dupree and Robert Woods, then do that. I don't see doing that and Tannehill just to get a quarterback. I think you're going to suffer. I think you can maintain. I don't know if Ryan Tannehill can win you a Super Bowl or not, but I don't think we're too far off from winning a Super Bowl per se. It just takes a little bit of wiggle room and a little finagling per se to get better offensive line, to get better receivers, to maintain the defense. Because here's the thing, you also get Harold Landry back next season. So you missed him all year because of his torn ACL in your preseason and practices and stuff. So I just don't see the logical reasons for getting rid of Tannehill. I think he does a fine job. I think he did pretty well given the circumstances this year, and I think he can do well next year as well. And that's what I'm sticking to. Unless something changes, Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback for the foreseeable future, at least this year, for the Titans, and that is what I'm staying with. I don't want or see a reason to go get somebody else unless something just happens and all of a sudden, the world is changing or something. So that's that. Ran Carthon during the Super Bowl, he got a lot of praise, and I mean a lot of praise, especially from 49ers players, raving about the type of person he is, the type of scout that he is, hard worker. So he got a lot of praise. A lot of people are excited from him. Of course, he is the first African-American general manager in Titans history. So I think there can be a lot of good from here, and I think he's got a big decision on his hands. Like I said, obviously you got the Ryan Tannehill thing, but how do you finagle the salary cap and fitting players in to improve your offense, improve your defense, and just improve your team? They've done it through coaching staff. It came out a couple days ago that the Titans hired former Broncos offensive coordinator last year, Justin Otten. He was the offensive coordinator for Nathaniel Hackett, who obviously he was not obviously good enough to make it through 1 year as the Broncos head coach, but he becomes the running back coach and run game coordinator, replacing Tony Dews, who moved to the tight ends coach and coordinator position. So I think this is a really good move for the Titans because they're developing a very strong offensive staff, and really just a team staff. They're developing a very good team staff, and to help put this team in good position because, last year you can think about it, the Broncos offense was pretty bad. They were one of the worst in the league. They were barely averaging 15 points a game. And then, so you're thinking, okay, he's the offensive coordinator, but Nathaniel Hackett's the one that called the plays. And Justin Otten, after Hackett was fired towards the end of the season, Otten did call the plays in the last two games, and they averaged, I think it was like 27 and 31 points they had each on those last two games. So with him calling plays, you see where you can have a silver lining in there. So bringing his mind and his game into the Titans, it can only benefit. He is taking a demotion, but, it's in hopes to, for him at least, it's in hopes to overcome that and get back to where he wants to go. But Justin Otten comes to the Titans from the Broncos, and I think that's really good. I think behind, Charles London and Tim Kelly, and I think this is just going to be a really healthy, and this is going to be a smart offensive coaching room, and put their brains together and create really good offensive schemes through passing, through running the ball. Obviously, you have Derrick Henry, but what do you have elsewhere? We will continue to find that out. I don't think a first-round pick you go for a wide receiver. You have to go for the line. You have to get an offensive tackle. That is what you need most in this team. It is, I think, in my opinion, I think old school football, especially the way the Titans run it, is you run the football. And the way to do that is the battle of the trenches. You stop the run, and then you block for the run. And I think the best way to get this team back where it needs to go is allow Ryan Tannehill some time in the freaking pocket. Because if he, like last year, does not have much time, he will get hurt just like he did last year. And I think starting with battling in the trenches and upgrading that offensive line, defensive line, just continually getting that depth, getting that success there will help this team improve very much. So other than that, there's not much Titans news out there. We will get into the combine that's coming up, and we will get into some prospects for the Titans and what's going on with there. If any trades happen, if any free agency moves happen, we will get obviously into that. But as the combine picks up, we will start dipping our toes into the draft and picking out prospects that the Titans need to go for, especially in the early rounds. And we will, we'll consider trades, draft day trades. We'll consider, positions moving up and down. Do they go into the one spot? We will see. We will talk about that more next week. But now we shift our focus into the Nashville Predators, and nobody knows. The Nashville Predators lose again. I don't even know what to describe the Nashville Predators these days because they're just not, okay? You've got John Hines who, he's going to the media saying, like, for instance, last night they played the Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins is the best team in the league, and they've only lost 8 games in the regulation, or maybe it's 6 games in regulation. And they are by far the best team in the league, and they showed Nashville last night in Bridgestone Arena, beating the Preds 5-0. It did not even look like the Predators was even in the building last night when they were playing. They just could not get anything offensively going. Of course, They are missing Philip Forsberg, who did get hurt Saturday's game. Took a hit on the boards, fell down, and looked like he was slow to get up. Didn't know if it was quite a concussion per se. Didn't know if he quite hit his head. Didn't know if it was his shoulder. He definitely looked dazed and confused. It reminds me of just what this Predators team is. Dazed and confused. Don't know what day it is. Don't know what team they're playing, because then they followed up with losing to the Arizona Coyotes on Monday night. A bad showing for that. It really just put the emphasis on what this team is, and it doesn't matter who they play. You don't know if they're going to win. You don't know if they're going to lose. But lately, it just seems like they're going down a slippery slope of losing and losing and losing. Maybe winning a game, but losing and losing. They're doing much more losing than winning. They still do have a positive record, but they are slowly going back to 500. So the trade deadline for the Predators is approaching. What does that mean for the Predators? I don't know what I was about to say, but David Poile, the general manager, was on 102.5 The Game the other day talking about what the Predators could do at the deadline. And basically, to sum it up and paraphrase, is if things do not change and they are continuing their losing ways, this Predators team will be open for essentially hunting season. If you want to make a call and you want somebody off this Predators team, go ahead and call 615 ... to David Poile, and he will pick up that phone. He will answer. Y'all can make a deal, and you can see who you can take away, because that is essentially what he said. Is if this team continues their losing ways, they are 100% not a buyer. He will determine if they stand pat at the deadline or not, but more than likely, they will probably sell. And then Pierre LeBrun, one of the leading insiders for the NHL, came out and said on NHL Network today or yesterday that if they continue their losing ways, it is open season for Predators. And, that includes Matt Duchene, that includes Mikael Granlund, Niederreiter, Ryan McDonough, whoever, you name it, except for probably, people like Philip Forsberg, who's got a no-movement clause, or Roman Josi with a no-movement clause, or UC Saros. With the exception of those three players, everyone else on this roster, I'm sure, is available. Ryan Johansson's available. Matthias Ekholm, he probably would garner some attention. I think we're about to see this team implode. If that's the case, if rumors are true and David Poile does make this team available, I do believe that we could very well see this team implode. But it also depends on price. These players, like Matt Duchene, they signed for $8 million contracts. Ryan Johansson signed for $8 million contracts with term. It was both of these players 8x8s, and there was about 3 years left on Johansson, 4 years on Duchene. So these deals are coming back to bite Poile, and I think the deadline could hurt them because of that instance. People don't want to trade for somebody who's not worth the money, and right now, not many players on this team is worth the money. So we will see how that goes. But like I said, I've been hammering this home almost week in and week out that the Predators need to sell. Sell, go back, start young. It is okay. It is okay to do that. It is okay to cut your losses. Say, John Hines, I get it. We wanted you. You didn't work out. Bye-bye. David Poile, we love you. We mean it. You've been here. You've gotten us through thick and thin. You started the franchise. Here we are. You're the winningest GM in history, but bye-bye. You need to start anew. This team is not, and I repeat, they are not where they need to be, and I don't know where they're going to go from here. What are you doing if you're just standing pat? You're just continuing the mediocre and mediocrity trend of nothing. And you may not even make the playoffs this year. Their talent on the roster, on paper, is, well, in my opinion, should be outstanding. Philip Forsberg, who is not the elite of the elite, but can score goals, is not. Matt Duchene, who had a really good year last year, just like Philip Forsberg, is not. Up and down. Ryan Johansson has not been making his money for the past 3 years. Mikael Granlund, where has he been? Niederreiter is probably one of the most consistent things on his roster, which he will garner some attention if he is available on the trade deadline. What can these players get? They're probably going to request Nashville to retain some salary. And, can you get a first? I'm sure you can probably get first round pick, but the only way you get first round picks out of this is probably retaining salary. If Matt Duchene is making $8 million, then they're going to have to retain, $2 million of that or something. And it is not looking good for this team. I don't know what they have coming up that really tells you, they can get back into it. They're just, we'll look up the schedule, but I don't even know anymore what to say. It's the same thing every week, like I've said. Coming up this weekend, they have a back-to-back. They go to Florida, or they're at home against Florida, and then they fly up to Minnesota. 1 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock on Sunday. I can see both of these games being losses. Then they're home against Vancouver again. I can see them winning that. Going to San Jose and Arizona. I think then you can maybe get three wins. But is it enough? Does it really matter at this point? The on-ice product is not good enough. You're not making good decisions on the ice. The coaches are not making good decisions. They obviously can't get them to win. They can get them to play hard, but they can't get them to win. Like I said, this roster on paper is pretty good, but the coaches can't get them to win. So what does that tell you about the coaches? Obviously nothing if nothing's happening. It doesn't make sense to me. I can see them getting some wins coming up in the schedule. But it doesn't matter. March 8th, I believe, is the trade deadline, which is about 2 weeks away. And, they will have played... They will play 9 games from now until March 8th. I can see them winning 3 of those 9 games. That's pretty bad. That would probably get you... I think that would get you to 500 on your record. Put you about 4 spots out of the playoffs. And really, there's nowhere looking up. I don't see what the silver lining that you can find in this team, unless all of a sudden they just turn a corner and say, "Yep, we're on it now. Here we go." Forsberg comes back and he just fits right in, and they're just driving to make the playoffs. That's the only way I see that this team doesn't blow up. But in 9 games, I don't think you're going to see that. Forsberg is day-to-day. There's lack of offense there. Philip Tomasino finally was called up. Hasn't done anything, but that's not necessarily his fault. He's joining a team that, one, has neglected him all season, leaving him in Milwaukee. And there's not really good chemistry going on. So I think there's a lot going on that is really just negative. There's more negative than positive, and I think we're seeing this on a night in and night out basis. So you can win one, that's fine. But then you lose. Just like, you beat Philadelphia last week in overtime. Forsberg gets hurt, but then you lose to Arizona 4-2. Then you lose to Boston 5-0. You're probably going to lose tomorrow. You're probably going to lose on Sunday. The on-ice product is just not good enough. I don't know what there is to say about it. From a points perspective, I don't know. Roman Josi's got 44 points through 52 games, so he's no longer on a point-per-game basis. Forsberg's got 42 points on a 50 games basis. No one is like what they were last year. Forsberg has increased his goal total to 19. By this point last year, he was getting close to 30. It's just the offense is not there. The defense is really not there either. McDonough was supposed to come in here and help, make that defense strong. 5 goals last night, 4 goals the night before. Where is this defense that we were promised? Power play goals are not happening. Things are just not happening. Not happening for this Predators team. And there's not much to talk about it. There's nothing really good to talk about. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to wait and see what happens next week. Inching closer to that trade deadline. See what happens. See how many games they win. See any more news from David Poile. See what kind of injuries are happening. See if trades are happening. See if people are being healthy scratched, for holding out for trades. Keep people from getting injured. That happens near the trade deadline. You see these players who don't don't play in the game, and it's because they're healthy scratch, and then whatever the rumor is to be in the trade. So we'll see what happens. It's just not a lot of good going on right now. All right, so lastly, we're going to talk about the Nashville SC briefly. They do start their season up next week on the 25th, which today is the 17th. So that means a week or whatever. I don't know. I'm not good with days. Next Wednesday, I think it is. So, nope, I think that's next Saturday. See, I told you, I'm not good with dates. They play at home against the New York City, whatever they're called. I don't even know what team names are anymore. We'll just call them the New York City FC, because I'm not quite sure. There's no really mascots in MLS. You got New York Red Bulls, or you got New York City FC. You got the Montreal, you got New England and Cincinnati, all these there FC, SC, whatever. It gets kind of confusing sometimes. It's not like, you're over in the Premier League where you got like FC Barcelona or Real Madrid. There's no SC, FC, whatever. Some of them there are, but most of them are a football club where America puts their own style into it. Soccer club, Nashville Soccer Club. So they get their start up next week. They did and are announcing a new jersey to their lineup. It is, I believe, their away jersey. It is going to be an all black in basically dedication to Johnny Cash. It is a sick jersey, if I do say myself. And so you can find that if you just Google their Nashville SC Jersey Launch 2023. You will see it. It's already out. They show all the details on there. It's pretty slick. It's all black. It's kind of like a two-tone blacks. The main jersey's black, a little bit lighter black on the sleeves. And they have Johnny Cash's signature on where the collar is in the back there, where the tag would be. It's really cool. It's a really cool jersey. Definitely go check that out. They will debut that jersey, I'm sure, March 4th when they travel up to New York and play the Red Bulls. So it's pretty cool. It's every year I feel like they get a new jersey. I really like last year's jersey where they had the pulsing sound on the sides and kind of like a stripe. That was a really cool jersey. I think Nashville SC, they have a lot going from them. They're riding an MVP season from Hani Mukhtar. I think CJ Sapong needs to show up, and we'll see what kind of goes with that. But there's not a lot of news. Obviously, nothing's really going on for Nashville SC other than just they're getting started and jersey launch. But it's going to be exciting. I think that they can, obviously they've been in contention every year that they've been a club. They've made the playoffs. They've lost in the playoff second round. And last year, they went far. Weren't just quite good enough in the playoffs, but if they can get a well-balanced attack between Mukhtar and CJ Sapong and Randall Leal and people of that nature, if they can get them to be a well-balanced attack on the forefront, this team can and will score goals on you. It doesn't matter. And then, of course, you have a great goalkeeper, and putting up a lot of saves. I don't even remember his name. Oh, my gosh. This is terrible. Joe. I know that. What is his name? Joe Willis. Okay, I thought it was Willis. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good season. I think they can put up a lot of goals, and they can also play really good defense with Walker Zimmerman back there. And then they also have the first round pick a couple years ago with Jack Mayer. John Mayer's the singer. Does not. Maybe Music City, but it's not that kind of Music City where we have celebrities playing for the soccer club. That does not happen. So it's gonna be cool. We'll get we'll touch more on that next week. We'll kind of maybe do a breakdown of the game that's going to take place between them and New York City, and we'll go from there. So that is it for today's podcast of the Nashville Native. I'm your host, like always, Justin Hawkins. Don't forget, follow along, subscribe, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Get your all kinds of Nashville sports content needs, desires, wants, whatever you name it. And then, of course, we also talk a little bit about other news going around in the major sports leagues. But until then, we will see you next week here on the Nashville Native. Justin Hawkins. See you next time.